October 15th, 2024. The story begins when Emma Whitmore, a 28-year-old graphic designer from Boston, inherits a box of family photographs after her grandmother's passing. Among the sepia-toned memories spanning nearly a century, one particular image would soon consume her thoughts and change everything she believed about her family's history. The photograph in question appears unremarkable at first glance, a formal family portrait taken in 1920, showing her great-great-grandfather, William Whitmore, standing proudly behind his seated wife and 3 young children. The setting is typical of professional studio photography from the era: an ornate backdrop, carefully arranged furniture, and the family dressed in their finest clothes for this important occasion. William Whitmore cuts an impressive figure in the photograph. At 42, he appears as a distinguished gentleman wearing a 3-piece wool suit, his dark hair parted precisely, and his mustache waxed in the fashion of the time. His wife Eleanor sits gracefully in an elaborate dress with intricate beadwork, while their children, 2 boys and a girl, ages ranging from 5 to 12, are positioned around their parents with the formal stiffness that characterized photography of the period. Emma first discovers the photograph while sorting through her grandmother's belongings in the family's Salem home. The house, built in 1898, had been in the Whitmore family for over a century, and its attic contained decades of carefully preserved family documents, letters, and photographs. This particular image had been stored in an ornate silver frame, suggesting it held special significance for the family. What makes this photograph particularly intriguing is not immediately apparent. The image quality is exceptional for 1920, with sharp focus and clear detail that speaks to the photographer's skill in the use of professional equipment. Every element of the family's attire is visible, from the fine stitching on Eleanor's dress to the polished buttons on William's vest. Emma studies the photograph with the trained eye of someone who works with visual imagery professionally. Something about her great-great-grandfather's appearance catches her attention, though she can't initially identify what seems unusual. William's pose is formal, yet relaxed, his expression serious but not stern, and his clothing appears appropriate for a successful businessman of the era. It's only when Emma decides to digitize the family photographs for preservation that the mystery begins to unfold. Using her high-resolution scanner and photo editing software, she begins creating digital copies of the most important family images. The 1920 portrait requires careful handling due to its age, but the original photograph is in remarkably good condition, protected by years of storage in the silver frame. As the scanning process captures every detail of the century-old image, Emma notices something that makes her pause. On William's left lapel, barely visible in the original photograph, but now clear in the high-resolution digital version, is a small ornamental piece that doesn't quite match the rest of his formal attire. The object appears to be a brooch or pin, of some kind, circular in shape and approximately 3 inches in diameter. In the enhanced digital image, she can see that it features an intricate floral design with what appear to be roses and leaves arranged in a decorative pattern. The piece seems out of place on a man's formal suit, particularly given the conservative fashion norms of 1920. Emma zooms in further on the digital image, her curiosity piqued by this unusual detail. The brooch appears to be made of silver, and its craftsmanship looks exceptional even in the old photograph. But as she adjusts the contrast and brightness of the digital image to bring out more detail, something even more puzzling becomes apparent. Along the edges of the brooch, almost invisible in the original photograph but now discernible in the enhanced digital version, are tiny markings that don't appear to be part of the decorative floral design. These markings are so small and faint that they would have been completely overlooked without modern digital enhancement technology. Emma realizes she may have stumbled upon a family mystery that has remained hidden for over a century, preserved in plain sight within this seemingly innocent family portrait. October 16, 2024. Emma Whitmore cannot stop thinking about the strange brooch visible on her great-great-grandfather's lapel in the 1920 family portrait. What began as a simple family history project has evolved into something far more intriguing, compelling her to use every tool at her disposal to uncover the truth about this mysterious piece of jewelry. In her downtown Boston apartment, Emma has converted her spare bedroom into a makeshift digital forensics lab. Her professional background in graphic design has provided her with sophisticated image editing software and the technical skills necessary to extract maximum detail from the century-old photograph. What she discovers during her detailed analysis defies easy explanation. Using Adobe Photoshop's most advanced enhancement features, Emma begins working systematically through the digital scan of the family portrait. She adjusts contrast levels, manipulates brightness curves, and applies sharpening filters to bring out details that were previously invisible. The results are remarkable. Features that were mere shadows in the original photograph now emerge with startling clarity. The brooch on William Whitmore's lapel becomes the focus of her investigation. Through digital enhancement, Emma can now see that the piece is indeed a work of exceptional craftsmanship. The floral design features intricate roses with individually detailed petals, surrounded by leaves that show delicate veining. The level of detail suggests this was created by a master silversmith, not a mass-produced piece of jewelry. But it's what Emma discovers next that truly captures her attention and begins to raise serious questions about the photograph itself. As she continues to enhance the image, zooming in to the maximum resolution her software allows, those tiny markings along the edges of the brooch become increasingly clear and distinct. Under extreme magnification, the markings resolve into a series of small symbols that appear to have been deliberately etched into the silver. Emma can now identify what looks like a triangle with a dot in its center, followed by a stylized letter that might be an M, a series of parallel lines resembling hash marks, and what appears to be a small compass rose or star-like symbol. These discoveries would be intriguing enough on their own, but Emma's technical analysis reveals something that shouldn't be possible. When she examines the digital image at pixel level, studying the way light interacts with the various surfaces in the photograph, she notices inconsistencies that trouble her professional instincts. The level of detail visible in the brooch, particularly the tiny symbols, should not be resolvable in a photograph taken with 1920s camera technology. Even the finest professional equipment of that era had limitations in terms of resolution and depth of field that would have made capturing such minute details virtually impossible. Yet here they are, clearly visible in what appears to be an authentic century-old photograph. Emma begins researching the technical specifications of cameras available in 1920. She discovers that the most advanced professional cameras of the period used large-format glass plates and could indeed produce remarkably sharp images under ideal conditions. However, the depth of field required to capture both the family members and the tiny details on the brooch simultaneously would have required lighting and lens technology that simply didn't exist at the time. This realization leads Emma to consider several possibilities, none of which provide easy answers. Either the photograph has been manipulated at some point during its century-long existence, or the camera and techniques used to create it were far more advanced than should have been available in 1920. Both options suggest that this seemingly innocent family portrait conceals secrets that go beyond a simple ornamental brooch. Emma prints out high-resolution copies of the enhanced sections showing the brooch and its mysterious symbols. She pins them to a corkboard in her apartment, creating a visual investigation board that she studies obsessively. The symbols seem familiar somehow, though she can't place where she might have encountered them before. Her background in graphic design has exposed her to countless fonts, symbols, and design elements throughout her career. Yet these particular markings don't match anything in her extensive mental catalog. They appear to be neither decorative flourishes nor standard maker's marks that would typically be found on period jewelry. As Emma continues her analysis, she realizes she needs to learn more about her great-great-grandfather William Whitmore and the circumstances surrounding this photograph. The brooch and its mysterious markings may hold the key to understanding not just a piece of family jewelry, but possibly a hidden chapter in her family's history that has remained secret for over a century. October 18th, 2024. Emma returns to her grandmother's house in Salem, determined to uncover more information about William Whitmore and the mysterious circumstances surrounding the 1920 family portrait. The Victorian home's attic, where she first discovered the photograph, contains decades of carefully preserved family documents that may hold the answers she seeks. The afternoon light filters through the small attic windows as Emma systematically examines boxes of family papers that have remained untouched for years. Her grandmother, Margaret Whitmore, had been meticulous about preserving family history, organizing documents by decade and family member. What Emma discovers in William's personal papers immediately deepens the mystery surrounding the brooch. Among William's documents, Emma finds his business correspondence, tax records, and personal letters dating from 1918 to 1925. William Whitmore had been a successful import businessman, specializing in European luxury goods and maintaining extensive connections with craftsmen and manufacturers across the Atlantic. His business records show regular transactions with silversmiths, jewelers, and metalworkers from London, Paris, and Vienna. But it's a series of personal letters, written in William's distinctive handwriting and dating from late 1919 through early 1920, that begin to reveal a different side of her great-great-grandfather's life. The letters are addressed to someone identified only as H.M., and speak of special commissions and discreet arrangements that needed to remain absolutely confidential. 1. Letter, dated January 15, 1920, proves particularly revealing. My dear H.M., the piece has arrived as promised, and the craftsmanship exceeds even your detailed specifications. The symbols have been incorporated exactly as requested, invisible to casual observation, but clear to those who know what to seek. I will wear it proudly at the family portrait session, knowing that future generations may one day understand its true significance. Emma's hands tremble slightly as she reads this passage. The timing coincides perfectly with the family portrait, and the reference to symbols that are invisible to casual observation matches exactly what she discovered through digital enhancement of the photograph. William Whitmore had deliberately commissioned the brooch with its hidden markings, and he had specifically chosen to wear it for this important family photograph. Further investigation through the letters reveals additional intriguing details. William mentions the brotherhood in several communications, referring to obligations and commitments that extend beyond his business interests. He writes about preserving important knowledge and ensuring that the symbols survive for future recognition. The tone suggests involvement in some form of secret organization or society that valued discretion and coded communication. Emma discovers a wooden box hidden beneath other papers in William's collection. Inside, wrapped in faded silk cloth, she finds additional items that confirm her growing suspicions about her great-great-grandfather's secret activities. There's a small leather-bound journal filled with sketches of various symbols, including several that match those she identified on the brooch. The journal also contains maps of Boston and Salem with certain locations marked by the same symbolic notation system. Most significant is a letter fragment, apparently torn from a larger document, that reads, "The Society of the Silver Rose has entrusted you with safeguarding the knowledge until circumstances permit revelation." The brooch serves as both identifier and key. Should anything happen to compromise our security, ensure the family portrait preserves evidence for future generations who possess the wisdom to understand. This discovery transforms Emma's understanding of the mysterious brooch entirely. Rather than being simply an ornamental piece of jewelry, it appears to have been a deliberate communication device, designed to preserve information about a secret organization called the Society of the Silver Rose. William Whitmore hadn't just been wearing an unusual brooch in the family portrait. He had been creating a permanent record of his membership in this mysterious society. Emma photographs every relevant document and letter, building a comprehensive archive of evidence that paints a picture of William Whitmore as far more than a successful businessman. The letters reveal a man involved in clandestine activities, trusted with preserving important knowledge, and committed to ensuring that information about the Society of the Silver Rose would survive for future discovery. As evening approaches, Emma realizes she has uncovered only the beginning of this mystery. The Society of the Silver Rose, the significance of the symbolic markings, and William's role in preserving this secret knowledge all remain to be fully understood. But she now knows with certainty that her great-great-grandfather had deliberately embedded a message in that family portrait, a message that has waited over a century for someone with the right tools and persistence to decode it. The family. photograph that once seemed like a simple record of domestic life now appears to be something far more significant. A carefully planned time capsule designed to preserve evidence of secrets that were too dangerous to reveal in 1920 but might someday be safely uncovered by future generations. October 20th, 2024. Armed with the name Society of the Silver Rose from her great-great-grandfather's hidden letters, Emma begins researching this mysterious organization that appears to have played a significant role in William Whitmore's life during the early 1920s. What she discovers challenges everything she thought she knew about American history during that turbulent period. Emma's investigation begins at the Boston Public Library's Research Division, where she has access to historical databases and archives that aren't available online. The name Society of the Silver Rose doesn't appear in standard historical references, suggesting the organization was either very secretive or has been deliberately omitted from conventional historical records. However, Emma's persistence pays off when she discovers references to the society in the personal papers of several prominent Boston families donated to the library's manuscript collection. These documents, spanning from 1919 to 1923, paint a picture of a clandestine organization that operated during one of America's most challenging periods, the aftermath of World War I and the beginning of Prohibition. The society appears to have been composed primarily of successful businessmen, intellectuals, and craftsmen who shared concerns about the direction of American society following the war. According to the fragmented records Emma uncovers, members believe that important cultural knowledge and traditional craftsmanship were being lost in the rush toward industrialization and social change that characterized the post-war period. Dr. Harrison Mitchell, a Boston University historian whose personal papers include several references to the society, wrote in a 1921 diary entry, "The Silver Rose continues its vital work, preserving techniques and knowledge that would otherwise disappear with the passing of the older generation. Our symbol serves not merely as identification, but as a commitment to maintaining standards of excellence that transcend commercial considerations." Emma discovers that the society's members included silversmiths, jewelers, watchmakers, and other craftsmen who specialized in creating items that incorporated hidden symbolic elements. These pieces served multiple purposes. They demonstrated the maker's skill, preserved traditional techniques that were becoming rare, and created a network of identification among society members. The symbolic system used by the society, as Emma learns from studying various documents and references, was based on a combination of traditional craft guild markings and newly developed codes that allowed members to identify each other and communicate discrete messages. The triangle with a central dot, which she identified on William's brooch, appears to have been a primary identifier for society membership. Further research reveals that the Society of the Silver Rose was particularly active during the period, from 1919 to 1924, corresponding exactly with the time frame of William Whitmore's letters and the creation of the family portrait. The organization appears to have been responding to specific historical pressures: the rapid changes in American society following World War I, the implementation of Prohibition, and growing concerns about the preservation of traditional American craftsmanship. Emma finds evidence that society members often commissioned or created pieces specifically designed to preserve their knowledge and values for future generations. These items were crafted with exceptional skill and incorporated symbolic elements that would be meaningful to future society members or their descendants who possessed the knowledge to interpret them. A particularly revealing document comes from the estate papers of Charles Wellington, a Boston silversmith who died in 1925. His workshop inventory includes several pieces described as society commissions, featuring traditional rose motifs with integrated symbolic elements as specified by patron requirements. The descriptions match the style and construction of William's brooch almost perfectly. Emma's research also uncovers evidence that the Society of the Silver Rose maintained detailed records of its members and their commissions, but these primary documents appear to have been deliberately destroyed or hidden when the organization dissolved sometime in the mid-1920s. The only surviving evidence exists in scattered personal papers and the symbolic items themselves. The Society's apparent dissolution coincides with significant changes in American society during the mid-1920s. Economic prosperity, changing social attitudes, and the full establishment of prohibition seem to have eliminated the conditions that made the organization relevant. Many of its members transitioned back to conventional business activities, taking their knowledge and their symbolic items with them. This historical context helps Emma understand why William Whitmore chose to wear the brooch in the family portrait, and why he was so deliberate about preserving evidence of his society membership. By 1920, he may have sensed that the organization's active period was limited and that future preservation of its knowledge would depend on hidden records like the one he was creating in that formal family photograph. Emma realizes that her great-great-grandfather's brooch represents more than personal ornamentation or even society membership. It appears to be a carefully crafted repository of knowledge and techniques that the Society of the Silver Rose considered essential to preserve. The mysterious symbols aren't just identification marks. They're part of a comprehensive system designed to maintain cultural and craft traditions across generations. October 22, 2024. Emma contacts Dr. Patricia Hendricks, a professor of American history at Harvard University, who specializes in early 20th century social movements and secret societies. Dr. Hendricks has agreed to examine Emma's findings and provide expert analysis of both the historical documents and the enhanced photograph showing William Whitmore's mysterious brooch. Dr. Hendricks' office in Cambridge is filled with research materials documenting various fraternal organizations, craft guilds, and social movements from the 1900s through 1930s. When Emma presents her evidence about the Society of the Silver Rose, Dr. Hendricks immediately recognizes the significance of the discovery. "What you've uncovered," Dr. Hendricks explains as she examines the enhanced photograph, represents a fascinating example of how secret societies adapted to changing social conditions in post-World War I America. The Society of the Silver Rose appears to have been part of a broader movement of craft preservation that emerged as industrialization threatened traditional skills. Dr. Hendricks confirms that the historical period from 1919 to 1925 saw the formation of numerous organizations dedicated to preserving traditional American craftsmanship and cultural values. However, most of these groups operated openly, making the secretive nature of the Silver Rose Society particularly intriguing. The symbolic system embedded in William's brooch draws Dr. Hendricks's particular attention. Using high-powered magnification equipment in her research lab, she examines Emma's digital enhancements and confirms that the symbols represent a sophisticated communication system. The combination of traditional guild markings with newer coded elements suggests this organization was both preserving historical knowledge and creating new methods of discrete communication. Dr. Hendricks identifies several of the symbols through comparison with known craft guild markings from the period. The triangle with the central dot appears to be derived from traditional silversmithing guild symbols, while the stylized M may represent either master status within the organization or a specific identifier for the Massachusetts chapter of a larger network. However, the most intriguing discovery comes when Dr. Hendricks examines the parallel lines and compass rose symbols. These markings don't match any known guild or fraternal organization symbols from the period, suggesting they were unique to the Society of the Silver Rose. These symbols, she explains, appear to be part of a location-based coding system, possibly indicating specific meeting places or important sites relevant to the organization. The technical analysis of the photograph itself yields results that trouble both researchers. Dr. Hendricks arranges for Emma to consult with Dr. Michael Chen, a forensic photography expert who specializes in authenticating historical images. Dr. Chen's analysis confirms Emma's earlier observations about the impossible level of detail visible in the brooch. The resolution and depth of field required to capture these minute symbols, Dr. Chen explains after examining the original photograph, shouldn't have been achievable with 1920s camera technology under normal circumstances. Either this photograph was taken with experimental equipment that was decades ahead of its time, or it has been enhanced or manipulated at some point during its existence. However, Dr. Chen's detailed forensic analysis reveals no evidence of modern digital manipulation or historical tampering. The photograph appears to be authentically from 1920, with aging patterns, chemical composition, and physical characteristics consistent with period photography. This creates a paradox that challenges conventional understanding of both the photograph and the technology available during that era. The mystery deepens when Dr. Hendricks reveals additional research about advanced camera technology in the early 1920s. She has discovered references in her historical sources to experimental photography projects conducted by several Boston area universities and private research facilities during the immediate post-war period. Some of these projects involve developing enhanced camera systems for potential military or scientific applications. It's possible, Dr. Hendricks suggests, that the Society of the Silver Rose had connections to these experimental photography projects, either through member involvement or through access to advanced equipment that wasn't generally available. This would explain how William Whitmore was able to create a photograph with such exceptional detail and resolution. This possibility raises new questions about the scope and capabilities of the Society of the Silver Rose. Rather than being simply a craft preservation organization, it may have been connected to broader technological and scientific developments that were taking place during the early 1920s. William Whitmore's import business and extensive European connections could have provided access to advanced equipment or techniques that weren't widely available in the United States. Emma realizes that understanding the true significance of her great-great-grandfather's brooch and the photograph that preserves it will require investigating not just the Society of the Silver Rose, but also the broader technological and social networks that supported the organization's activities. The brooch is beginning to appear less like a simple piece of jewelry and more like a key to understanding a sophisticated network of individuals who were working to preserve and advance knowledge during a critical period in American history. Dr. Hendricks agrees to continue researching the Society of the Silver Rose through her academic networks, while Emma prepares to investigate the physical locations mentioned in William's papers and marked on his maps. October 24, 2024. Emma returns to Salem with William's hand-drawn maps and a growing understanding that her great-great-grandfather had left a trail of physical evidence throughout the historic city. The maps, discovered among his personal papers, show various locations marked with the same symbolic system that appears on the mysterious brooch, suggesting that these sites held special significance for the Society of the Silver Rose. Salem, in 1920, was a city transitioning from its maritime past toward a more modern industrial future, but many of the locations marked on William's maps still exist today. Emma begins her investigation at the Salem Public Library, where she hopes to research the historical significance of the marked locations and understand how they connected to the Society's activities. The first location on William's map corresponds to what is now the Peabody Essex Museum, but which in 1920 housed the Essex Institute, a prominent repository of local historical artifacts and documents. According to the museum's archives, William Whitmore had been a regular donor and supporter of the Institute's preservation efforts, contributing both funding and rare artifacts from his import business. Emma meets with Dr. Robert Sterling, the museum's chief curator, who provides access to the institution's historical records from the 1920s. What they discover immediately validates Emma's investigation. The Essex Institute's donation records show that William Whitmore contributed several pieces of exceptional metalwork and jewelry during the exact period when the Society of the Silver Rose was most active. Your great-great-grandfather, Dr. Sterling explains as he examines the museum's records, was particularly interested in preserving examples of traditional American craftsmanship. He donated several pieces that were created by what he called master craftsmen, who were keeping alive techniques that were disappearing due to industrial production methods. Among the items donated by William is a silver tea service that bears symbolic markings remarkably similar to those on the brooch in the family photograph. The tea service, created in 1921 by an unknown craftsman, features the same triangle with dot symbol and parallel line markings that Emma has been studying. The piece has been in the museum's collection for over a century, displayed as an example of exceptional American silversmithing without any recognition of its symbolic significance. Dr. Sterling arranges for Emma to examine the tea service in the museum's conservation laboratory, where high-powered magnification equipment reveals additional details. Hidden within the decorative patterns are not only the symbols Emma has identified, but also what appears to be a date, 1920, and a series of initials that may represent the names of society members. The second location, marked on William's map, leads Emma to a building that now houses a bookstore, but which served as a private meeting space for various organizations during the 1920s. The current owner, Margaret Foster, has maintained detailed records of the building's history and confirms that it was regularly rented by groups that preferred privacy and discretion for their gatherings. We found some interesting items when we renovated the basement in 1995, Foster tells Emma as she leads her through the building. There were several pieces of metalwork and some papers that appeared to be from the 1920s. We donated most of it to the Historical Society, but I kept a few pieces that were particularly beautiful. Foster shows Emma a small silver medallion that she has used as a decorative element in the bookstore. The medallion, roughly 2 inches in diameter, bears an intricate rose design surrounded by symbols that Emma immediately recognizes as matching those on William's brooch. The craftsmanship is exceptional, and the piece appears to have been created as part of the same symbolic system that the Society of the Silver Rose used for identification and communication. The third location on William's map presents a more challenging investigation. The site, which appears to have been a private residence in 1920, is now occupied by a modern office building. However, Emma's research at the Salem Historical Society reveals that the original house belonged to Harrison Mitchell, whose name appeared in the historical documents she discovered at the Boston Public Library. Mitchell's house served as what the Historical Society's records describe as a gathering place for local intellectuals and craftsmen during the early 1920s. The Society's archives include several references to meetings held at Mitchell's residence, though the specific nature of these gatherings was never recorded in detail. Emma realizes that William's maps weren't simply marking random locations around Salem. They were documenting a network of sites that were essential to the Society of the Silver Rose's operations. The Essex Institute served as a repository for preserving examples of the craftsman's work. The meeting hall provided a secure location for gatherings, and Mitchell's residence appears to have been a central coordination point for the organization's activities. This network approach suggests that the Society of the Silver Rose was far more organized and sophisticated than Emma initially realized. Rather than being a simple craft preservation group, it appears to have been a well-coordinated organization with multiple functional locations and a systematic approach to preserving both knowledge and physical artifacts. The discovery of additional symbolic pieces at these locations confirms that William's brooch was part of a larger collection of items created specifically for society members. Each piece appears to have been crafted to preserve different aspects of the organization's knowledge and to serve as permanent records of their activities and membership. As Emma concludes her investigation of the marked locations, she realizes that her great-great-grandfather had created more than just a hidden message in a family photograph. He had participated in establishing a comprehensive preservation system that ensured the Society of the Silver Rose's knowledge and artifacts would survive for future discovery. October 26, 2024. Emma's investigation takes a dramatic turn when Dr. Sterling at the Peabody Essex Museum contacts her with a remarkable discovery. While researching the provenance of the silver tea service donated by William Whitmore, the museum's conservation team has uncovered a hidden compartment within the piece that contains additional evidence about the Society of the Silver Rose and the mysterious craftsman who created both the tea service and William's brooch. The hidden compartment, cleverly concealed within the base of the tea service's main pot, was discovered only when the piece underwent routine conservation work. X-ray imaging revealed the presence of the compartment, which had been sealed so skillfully that it remained undetected for over a century. Inside, wrapped in oiled silk to prevent deterioration, the conservation team found a collection of documents and small artifacts that immediately shed new light on Emma's investigation. The most significant discovery is a letter written in William Whitmore's hand and addressed to future generations who possess the wisdom to seek. The letter, dated March 15, 1921, provides the first comprehensive explanation of William's involvement with the Society of the Silver Rose and the purpose behind the symbolic artifacts he helped preserve. "I write this record," the letter begins, Knowing that the society's active period draws to a close, but hoping that future members of my family will someday possess the knowledge necessary to understand our work. The master craftsman who created my family brooch and this tea service has preserved within these pieces not merely symbols of our organization, but actual techniques and knowledge that represent centuries of traditional American craftsmanship. The letter reveals that the Society of the Silver Rose was indeed focused on craft preservation, but in a far more sophisticated manner than Emma had previously understood. The organization's members had identified master craftsmen who possessed knowledge of techniques that were rapidly disappearing due to industrial manufacturing. These craftsmen were commissioned to create pieces that incorporated not just symbolic identification, but actual demonstrations of their skills and methods. Each piece created by our master craftsman, William's letter continues, serves as both art and instruction. The symbols indicate membership and meaning, but the construction techniques themselves preserve knowledge that would otherwise be lost. Future craftsmen who study these pieces carefully will be able to reconstruct methods and approaches that we fear may not survive the current period of rapid social change. The hidden compartment also contains detailed sketches and notes that appear to be in a different handwriting from William's letter. These documents, signed with the initials AR, provide technical specifications for creating the symbolic metalwork that characterize society pieces. The sketches show exact measurements for the symbols, specific techniques for integrating them into decorative elements, and detailed instructions for creating hidden compartments and secret features. Emma realizes that AR must be the master craftsman who created William's brooch and the other society pieces. The documents reveal someone with extraordinary skill and knowledge, capable of creating pieces that function simultaneously as beautiful objects, symbolic communication tools, and instructional repositories. Dr. Sterling's research team works with Emma to identify AR through comparison with known craftsmen active in the Boston area during the early 1920s. Their investigation leads to Alexander Rothschild, a European-trained silversmith who immigrated to the United States in 1918 and established a workshop in Boston's jewelry district. Rothschild's background explains much about the exceptional quality and sophisticated design of the society pieces. Born in Vienna in 1885, he had trained in traditional European metalworking techniques before emigrating to America following World War I. His workshop records, preserved in the Boston City Archives, show commissions for several prominent families and organizations during the exact period when the Society of the Silver Rose was most active. The discovery of Rothschild's identity allows Emma to understand the full scope of what her great-great-grandfather had preserved. The brooch wasn't simply a piece of jewelry or even just a symbol of organization membership. It was a masterwork created by one of the finest craftsmen of his generation, incorporating centuries of traditional techniques that were at risk of being lost forever. Emma learns that Rothschild's workshop had been equipped with tools and equipment that allowed him to work at levels of precision and detail that were exceptional even by the standards of master craftsmen. This explains how he was able to create the minute symbolic details that are visible in the enhanced photograph, and how he could incorporate sophisticated hidden features into his pieces. The documents from the hidden compartment also reveal that Rothschild created a series of instruction pieces for the society, each designed to preserve specific techniques and knowledge. William's brooch appears to have been part of this series, containing within its design and construction a complete demonstration of traditional symbolic metalworking that could serve as a teaching tool for future craftsmen. This understanding transforms Emma's perception of the family photograph once again. William Whitmore hadn't simply been wearing an unusual piece of jewelry when he posed for that formal portrait. He had been displaying a masterwork of traditional American craftsmanship that represented the preservation of centuries of knowledge and skill. The photograph itself becomes not just a family record, but a permanent documentation of cultural preservation efforts that were taking place during a critical period in American history. October 28, 2024. Emma's investigation reaches a startling revelation when Dr. Michael Chen, the forensic photography expert, contacts her with results from his detailed analysis of the original 1920 family portrait. What he has discovered challenges not only Emma's understanding of the photograph, but fundamental assumptions about the technological capabilities available during that historical period. Dr. Chen's laboratory analysis has revealed that the photograph exhibits characteristics that should have been impossible to achieve with standard 1920s camera equipment. The level of detail, particularly in the reproduction of William's brooch and its minute symbolic elements, suggests the use of photographic techniques and equipment that weren't widely available until decades later. I've spent considerable time researching the technical specifications of professional cameras available in 1920, Dr. Chen explains as he shows Emma his detailed analysis. Even the most advanced large-format equipment of the period would have required lighting conditions and lens technology that simply didn't exist commercially at that time to capture the level of detail visible in your family photograph. However, Dr. Chen's research has uncovered evidence of experimental photography projects that were being conducted in the Boston area during the early 1920s. Several universities, private research facilities, and even some government agencies were working on advanced camera systems that incorporated optical innovations developed during World War I for military reconnaissance purposes. The most promising lead comes from research conducted at Harvard University's Applied Sciences Department, where a team led by Dr. Edmund Hartwell was developing enhanced camera systems for scientific and documentation purposes. Dr. Hartwell's project, funded by a combination of university resources and private donations, aimed to create photographic equipment capable of capturing minute details for research and preservation applications. Emma and Dr. Chen visit Harvard's archives, where they discover that Dr. Hartwell's photography project had received significant support from Boston area businessmen and organizations interested in using advanced camera technology for documentation and preservation purposes. Among the YAO project supporters listed in university funding records from 1920 is William Whitmore. Your great-great-grandfather, Dr. Chen observes as they examine the university records, wasn't just a donor to this project. He appears to have been one of the primary advocates for developing camera technology specifically for preserving detailed images of crafted objects and historical artifacts. The university records reveal that William Whitmore had provided both funding and access to rare imported optical equipment that he obtained through his business connections in Europe. His contributions were essential to Dr. Hartwell's ability to create camera systems with resolution and precision capabilities that were decades ahead of their time. Emma realizes that William's involvement in advanced photography technology wasn't coincidental. It was directly connected to his work with the Society of the Silver Rose. The organization's mission to preserve traditional craftsmanship and knowledge required documentation, methods that could capture the minute details and subtle techniques that distinguished master craft work from industrial production. Dr. Hartwell's experimental camera system, as revealed in his technical notes preserved in the university archives, incorporated several innovations that weren't adopted by commercial photography until the 1940s and 1950s. These included advanced lens combinations, specialized lighting techniques, and precision focusing mechanisms that allowed for capturing extraordinary detail in controlled studio conditions. The family portrait from 1920, Emma now understands, wasn't created with standard commercial equipment. It was produced using Dr. Hartwell's experimental system, specifically arranged by William Whitmore to ensure that the symbolic details on his brooch would be preserved with perfect clarity for future discovery. This explains the paradox we encountered in our earlier analysis, Dr. Chen notes. The photograph is authentically from 1920, but it was created using technology that was far more advanced than what was generally available. Your great-great-grandfather essentially commissioned a state-of-the-art documentation project disguised as a family portrait. This revelation adds another layer to William Whitmore's sophisticated preservation strategy. Not only had he commissioned a master craftsman to create symbolic artifacts and established a network of preservation sites throughout Salem, but he had also invested in developing the photographic technology necessary to document his efforts with unprecedented precision. The experimental camera system also explains other unusual characteristics of the photograph that had puzzled Emma during her investigation. The exceptional sharpness throughout the image, the perfect lighting that illuminates every detail of the family's clothing and accessories, and the professional composition all reflect the use of advanced equipment operated by skilled technicians, rather than a conventional portrait photographer. Emma discovers additional evidence of this sophisticated approach in Dr. Hartwell's project notes. which described the 1920 Whitmore family portrait as a demonstration session designed to test the camera system's ability to capture fine details in formal portraiture settings. The session appears to have been as much a technology test as a family documentation project. This understanding completely reframes the significance of the family photograph. Rather than being a simple family record that accidentally preserved evidence of William's secret activities, it was a deliberately planned documentation project designed to create a permanent, detailed record of the Society of the Silver Rose's most important symbolic artifact. The photograph itself represents the intersection of advanced technology, traditional craftsmanship, and strategic preservation planning that characterized the Society's approach to safeguarding knowledge for future generations. October 30th, 2024. Emma's months of investigation reach their climax when she receives a call from Dr. Patricia Hendricks at Harvard, who has made a discovery that transforms the entire understanding of the Society of the Silver Rose and William Whitmore's role in preserving American cultural heritage. The revelation comes from an unexpected source: recently declassified government documents that reveal the true scope and significance of the Society's activities. Dr. Hendricks explains that her research into early 20th century cultural preservation movements led her to examine records at the National Archives that had been classified for decades. Among these documents, she discovered files relating to a government-sponsored program that operated from 1919 to 1925, designed to preserve traditional American craftsmanship and cultural knowledge that was considered essential to national heritage. The program, officially designated as the Cultural Preservation Initiative, was established in response to concerns that rapid industrialization and social changes following World War I were causing the permanent loss of skills and knowledge that had been fundamental to American development. The initiative provided funding and resources to organizations and individuals who could document and preserve these endangered cultural elements. What you've been investigating as the Society of the Silver Rose, Dr. Hendricks reveals, was actually the Boston region's implementation of this national program. Your great-great-grandfather wasn't just a member of a private organization. He was a designated agent working to preserve cultural heritage on behalf of the United States government. The declassified documents show that William Whitmore had been selected for this role based on his business connections, his access to traditional European craftsmen through his import business, and his demonstrated commitment to preserving quality craftsmanship. His mission was to identify master craftsmen, commission preservation pieces that demonstrated traditional techniques, and create comprehensive documentation that would ensure these skills could be reconstructed by future generations. The symbolic system that Emma had interpreted as a secret society communication method was actually a standardized cataloging system developed by the Cultural Preservation Initiative. Each symbol indicated specific information about the piece, the craftsman, the techniques demonstrated, the regional tradition represented, and the preservation priority level assigned by the program administrators. Alexander Rothschild, the master craftsman who created William's brooch and other society pieces, had been recruited to the program specifically because of his traditional European training and his ability to demonstrate techniques that were becoming rare in American workshops. The government program provided him with funding and resources to create a series of instructional pieces that would serve as permanent records of traditional metalworking methods. The Advanced Photography Project at Harvard University, rather than being a separate research initiative, was actually part of the Cultural Preservation Initiative's documentation requirements. The program recognized that preserving the physical artifacts alone wasn't sufficient. Detailed photographic records were essential to capture the subtle details and techniques that distinguished master craftsmanship. The family portrait, Dr. Hendricks explains, served multiple purposes within this framework. It documented William's participation in the program, created a permanent record of one of the most significant preservation pieces, and ensured that future family members would have access to information about the program's activities. Emma learns that the Cultural Preservation Initiative was discontinued in 1925 when funding priorities shifted and concerns about government involvement in cultural activities led to the program's termination. However, the artifacts and documentation created during its operation were intended to serve as permanent resources for understanding and reconstructing traditional American craftsmanship. The declassified documents reveal that William Whitmore's work with the program was considered exceptionally successful. His network of preservation sites in Salem, his collaboration with master craftsmen like Alexander Rothschild, and his investment in advanced documentation technology all contributed to creating one of the most comprehensive regional preservation collections in the country. The brooch that had started Emma's investigation now appears in its true historical context, not as a secret society symbol, but as a masterwork of traditional American craftsmanship, created as part of a national effort to preserve cultural heritage for future generations. The symbolic markings weren't mysterious codes, but standardized documentation elements designed to help future researchers understand the piece's significance and construction methods. Emma realizes that her great-great-grandfather had been participating in one of the most important cultural preservation efforts in American history, work that was kept confidential not because of secretive intentions, but because the government program required discretion to protect the craftsman and preserve the integrity of the preservation process. The family photograph, rather than accidentally capturing evidence of secret activities, was actually a carefully planned documentation of successful cultural preservation work. William Whitmore had ensured that future generations of his family would have access to both the physical artifacts and the photographic records necessary to understand and appreciate America's traditional craftsmanship heritage. This revelation transforms the entire narrative from a mystery about secret societies and hidden messages into a story about deliberate cultural preservation and the foresight of individuals who recognize the importance of safeguarding traditional knowledge during periods of rapid social change. November 2nd, 2024, Emma stands in her grandmother's house in Salem, surrounded by the evidence of her months-long investigation, finally understanding the true significance of the 1920 family portrait and her great-great-grandfather's remarkable legacy. What began as curiosity about a strange brooch has revealed a story of cultural preservation, technological innovation, and deliberate planning that spans over a century. The revelation that William Whitmore had been working as part of a government cultural preservation program transforms Emma's understanding of her family history. Rather than discovering evidence of secret society activities, she has uncovered her great-great-grandfather's participation in one of the most significant cultural heritage preservation efforts in American history. Emma carefully examines the brooch one final time, now seeing it not as a mysterious artifact, but as a masterpiece of traditional American craftsmanship. Each symbolic element that had puzzled her for months now makes perfect sense within the context of the Cultural Preservation Initiative's documentation system. The triangle with the central dot indicates the piece was created as part of the metalworking preservation category. The stylized M marks it as a Massachusetts regional example. The parallel lines show it was classified as a priority preservation piece, and the compass rose symbol indicates it was created by a European-trained craftsman working in traditional American techniques. Dr. Hendricks arrives at the house with additional documents from the National Archives, including William Whitmore's official reports to the Cultural Preservation Initiative. These reports reveal the full scope of his preservation work and his deep commitment to ensuring that traditional American craftsmanship would survive for future generations. Your great-great-grandfather submitted detailed quarterly reports about his preservation activities, Dr. Hendricks explains as she shows Emma the official documents. He documented not just the pieces that were created, but also the techniques that were preserved, the craftsmen who were supported, and the locations where examples were stored for future access. The reports show that William's work extended far beyond the items Emma discovered during her investigation. Over the 6 years of his involvement with the program, he facilitated the creation of over 200 preservation pieces, supported the work of 15 master craftsmen, and established preservation repositories in 12 locations throughout Massachusetts and surrounding states. The family portrait, according to William's final report to the program, was specifically created as a comprehensive documentation piece designed to preserve visual evidence of the program's most significant achievement. The brooch created by Alexander Rothschild that demonstrated the intersection of traditional European techniques with American materials and artistic sensibilities. Emma learns that William had anticipated the program's eventual termination and had deliberately structured his preservation work to ensure its long-term survival. The network of sites in Salem, the collaboration with Harvard's photography project, and even the decision to wear the brooch in a formal family portrait were all part of a comprehensive plan to create multiple preservation pathways that would survive changes in government policy and social priorities. He was remarkably prescient, Dr. Hendricks observes. William understood that government programs can be discontinued, but family photographs and museum collections tend to survive across generations. He created a preservation system that didn't depend on continued institutional support. Emma realizes that her investigation has revealed not just her family's history, but an important chapter in American cultural preservation that has been largely forgotten. The Cultural Preservation Initiative and the work of people like William Whitmore represent an early recognition of the importance of safeguarding traditional knowledge and skills in a rapidly changing society. The brooch, the photograph, and the network of preservation sites that William established have successfully served their intended purpose. Over a century after their creation, they have provided Emma with the tools necessary to understand and appreciate traditional American craftsmanship, exactly as William had hoped future generations would be able to do. Dr. Sterling from the Peabody, Essex Museum contacts Emma with plans to create a comprehensive exhibition featuring the preservation pieces that William Whitmore helped create. The exhibition will tell the story of the Cultural Preservation Initiative and highlight the foresight of individuals who recognize the importance of preserving traditional skills and knowledge. Your great-great-grandfather's work, Dr. Sterling explains, represents one of the earliest systematic efforts to preserve American cultural heritage. The pieces he helped create and preserve provide us with invaluable insights into traditional craftsmanship techniques that would otherwise have been lost forever. Emma decides to donate the family photograph and William's documentation to the museum's permanent collection, ensuring that future researchers and visitors will have access to this important piece of American cultural history. However, she arranges to keep the brooch itself, recognizing it as a family heirloom that represents not just artistic achievement, but her great-great-grandfather's dedication to preserving knowledge for future generations. As Emma prepares to leave her grandmother's house, she reflects on how the discovery of the mysterious brooch has connected her to a family legacy she never knew existed. William Whitmore's work with the Cultural Preservation Initiative represents values and priorities that remain relevant today: the importance of preserving traditional knowledge, supporting skilled craftsmen, and ensuring that cultural heritage survives periods of rapid social change. The family portrait that started her investigation will now be displayed in a museum, where it will continue to serve its original purpose of documenting and preserving important cultural knowledge. The photograph that once seemed like a simple family record has revealed itself to be a sophisticated piece of cultural documentation that successfully preserved its secrets for over a century, waiting for someone with the curiosity and persistence necessary to uncover its true significance. Emma's investigation concludes with a profound appreciation for her great-great-grandfather's foresight and dedication. The mysterious brooch that sparked months of research has revealed itself to be exactly what William Whitmore intended: a bridge between past and present, preserving traditional knowledge and connecting future generations to their cultural heritage. In uncovering the truth about the 1920 family portrait, Emma has not only solved a century-old mystery, but has also discovered her own connection to one of America's most important cultural preservation efforts.